You know that moment when your husband's side piece decides to announce their relationship at the same restaurant where you had your first date 12 years ago? Yeah. Turns out the proper response isn't crying into a pint of Ben& Jerry's. It's strategic social media warfare. My name's Greer Barrett, and until last Tuesday at 3:47 p.m., I thought the biggest drama in my life was deciding between Target's fall decorations and Pottery Barn's overpriced seasonal collection. Boy, was I living in denial suburbia. Picture this. I'm sitting in my pristine kitchen in our Westchester County colonial, the kind with the perfect white picket fence that screams, "Successful American Dream Achieved." Scrolling through Instagram while my organic, free-range, probably blessed by Monk's chicken breast defrosts for Sterling's favorite dinner. That's when I saw it. The post that made my perfectly crafted world crack like cheap nail polish. There was my husband of 12 years, Sterling Barrett, looking absolutely smitten while wrapped around a blonde who definitely wasn't me. And not just any blonde. Madison, his 24-year-old assistant with the IQ of a decorative throw pillow and the professional ethics of a used car salesman. The location tag read, Romano's Italian Bistro. Our Romano's. The same dimly lit corner booth where Sterling proposed in 2015, where we celebrated every anniversary since, where I actually believed his "You're the only woman for me" speech just last month. The caption? New beginnings, blessed and in love, finding my person. Finding her person? Sweetie, you found someone else's person. There's a difference, and it's called a felony in some states. But here's where it gets deliciously twisted. As I stared at that photo, Sterling's hand possessively on her waist, her ring finger sporting what looked suspiciously like the tennis bracelet he claimed was back-ordered for my birthday, something clicked. Not heartbreak, not devastation. Pure, calculated rage mixed with the kind of clarity that only comes when you realize you've been played by someone you could outsmart in your sleep. See, I'd been noticing things for months. Little inconsistencies that my suburban mom brain had been filing away like coupons I'd never use. The client dinners that happened at Victoria's Secret according to our joint credit card statements. Size XS lingerie purchases when I'm confidently rocking my post-2 kids XL status. Business trips to Vegas that somehow never resulted in any actual business being discussed at home. And my personal favorite, catching Sterling in our garage last month, practicing his "sorry, honey," working late again voice like he was rehearsing for community theater. I actually recorded that gem on my phone, thinking it was adorably neurotic. Turns out it was just regular neurotic with a side of adultery. The man I married at 26, fresh out of my marketing coordinator position and convinced we'd build this perfect Connecticut life together, had been living a double life with someone who probably thinks fiscal responsibility is a new yoga pose. But Madison, bless her Instagram-obsessed heart, had just handed me the nuclear codes to my own revenge story. I screenshotted that post faster than she could say "home wrecker," and immediately started what I now call Operation Social Media Massacre. Because if there's one thing 12 years of marriage had taught me, it's that Sterling's biggest fear wasn't losing me. It was looking bad in front of other people. The man who spent 20 minutes every morning perfecting his casual, successful businessman look, who insisted we renovate our kitchen because the Hendersons had granite countertops, who actually practiced conversations before parent-teacher conferences. This man lived and died by his reputation. And Madison? Well, she was about to learn why you never mess with a woman who has a decade plus of dirt and the technological skills of someone who grew up with dial-up internet. I opened my laptop, the same one where I managed our family finances, planned our social calendar, and apparently enabled my husband's affair through blissful ignorance, and began what would become the most therapeutic PowerPoint presentation of my life. Every screenshot of his business trips that coincided with her Instagram stories from the same cities. Every credit card charge that made no sense for a man who claimed he was cutting back on expenses. Every time he came home with that guilty, overcompensating enthusiasm that I'd mistaken for renewed romance. The evidence was so overwhelming, I started feeling less like a betrayed wife and more like a detective who'd just cracked the case of the century. But the real masterpiece? That garage recording. Sterling's voice slightly muffled by our storage boxes, practicing, I know, another late night. This client is just really demanding. I'll make it up to you this weekend, I promise. Different variations, different tones, like he was auditioning for the role of devoted husband in the world's worst dinner theater production. As I compiled my evidence, I couldn't help but laugh. Here I was, thinking Sterling had been stressed about work, maybe going through some kind of midlife crisis at 38. I'd been the supportive wife, suggesting couples therapy, planning romantic surprises, even buying him those expensive golf lessons he'd wanted. Meanwhile, he'd been conducting his own romance with someone who was in elementary school when we started dating. The irony was almost artistic. I'd been worried about us growing apart after 12 years together, about keeping the spark alive in our marriage, about being interesting enough for a successful financial advisor husband. And all along, he'd found someone whose idea of intellectual conversation probably involved discussing which filter made her look more authentic. But as I sat there in our kitchen, surrounded by the Williams-Sonoma wedding gifts that Madison probably couldn't even pronounce, I realized something crucial. I wasn't just angry, I was inspired, because Sterling had made one fatal error in his little affair playbook. He'd underestimated the woman who'd been organizing his life, managing his schedule, and basically serving as his unpaid personal assistant for over a decade. The same organizational skills that made me PTA treasurer 3 years running, they were about to be redirected toward a very different kind of project. And Madison's public announcement had just given me the perfect platform to showcase my work. Once I committed to my little investigation, I discovered I had a genuine talent for detective work. Who knew that 12 years of managing Sterling's chaotic schedule would translate so perfectly into forensic accounting? I started with the credit card statements, because nothing says faithful husband like mysterious charges at lingerie boutiques. Our joint Chase account read like a romance novel written by someone with absolutely no imagination. February 14th, Valentine's Day. Victoria's Secret, $97. Sweet, right? Except I received a box of drugstore chocolates and a card he clearly grabbed at CVS 5 minutes before coming home. March 15th, the same store, $123. March was my birthday month. My actual gift, a blender. A blender, people. Because apparently, nothing says I love you like kitchen appliances that suggest you need to work harder on your smoothie game. But the real smoking gun was April 22nd, Tiffany & Co., $850. I remember that date perfectly, because it was the same day Sterling came home complaining about our tight budget and suggesting we cancel our annual Martha's Vineyard trip to be more financially responsible. Meanwhile, he was dropping nearly $1,000 on jewelry for someone who probably thought financial planning meant splitting the bill on dinner dates. The travel charges told an even better story. Sterling's client meetings had taken him to some fascinating places. Vegas in January, Miami in March, and a particularly interesting weekend in Napa Valley that coincided with Madison's Instagram story series titled Wine Country Vibes with My Mystery Man. She'd been strategic about not showing his face, but I recognized his hideous orange golf shirt from 3 different angles. That Napa trip was especially insulting because I'd suggested we go wine tasting for our anniversary, and Sterling claimed he couldn't get away from work. Apparently, work had followed him there, just in a size 2 dress and with the vocabulary of a lifestyle blogger. But the absolute masterpiece of evidence came from our shared Google Photos account. Sterling, brilliant man that he is, had forgotten we'd linked our phones for easier family photo sharing. Every picture he took automatically uploaded to our joint cloud storage. I found selfies he'd taken in hotel mirrors, tagged location data and all. Screenshots of text conversations he'd saved, probably thinking they were romantic keepsakes. And my personal favorite, a photo of Madison sleeping in what was obviously a hotel bed, taken from the perspective of someone lying next to her. The timestamp? Last Tuesday morning at 6:23 a.m. The same Tuesday he'd texted me at 6:30 a.m. saying, "Stuck in early client meeting. Won't make breakfast. Love you." Love me? He'd been photographing his girlfriend's morning routine 7 minutes before lying to my face. I started creating what I privately called the Sterling Files, organized by date, location, and level of audacity. The man had been running a parallel life so detailed it probably deserved its own reality show. Keeping up with the Barretts, Connecticut edition. His phone records revealed daily calls to the same number, always during his lunch breaks. When I reverse searched it, guess whose name popped up? Miss Madison Claire Walsh, complete with her LinkedIn profile boasting about being executive assistant at Barrett Financial Services. Executive assistant. She was probably executing more than just filing duties. The really twisted part? I found evidence that this had been going on for 8 months. 8 months of working late, client emergencies, and business conferences. 8 months of me trying to be the perfect supportive wife while he was building an entire second relationship. I discovered restaurant receipts from places I'd never heard of, charged to our account, but clearly romantic dinners for 2. Charges at florists every Friday, the same day he'd been coming home exhausted and stressed about work. Those flowers weren't making it to our house, that's for sure. But the evidence that broke my heart and hardened my resolve simultaneously was a charge at K Jewelers from 2 weeks ago. A promise ring. Sterling had bought his 24-year-old side piece a promise ring while telling me we needed to tighten our belts financially. The same man who'd made me return a $60 dress because it was unnecessary spending had just promised his girlfriend a future with an overpriced piece of jewelry from the mall. As I compiled everything into a comprehensive digital file, complete with screenshots, timestamps, and location data, I started feeling less like a victim and more like a prosecutor preparing for the trial of the century. Sterling had left a paper trail so obvious that even his accounting clients would have caught it. For someone who managed other people's money professionally, he'd been remarkably sloppy with covering his tracks. But the real revelation came when I found his backup phone charger in his car. Yes, Sterling had a second phone, hidden in his glove compartment like he was running some kind of suburban spy operation. When I managed to access it, thank you, predictable password that was just our wedding date backwards, I found months of messages that read like a teenager's diary. Missing you already. Can't wait to hold you. And the absolutely nauseating, you make me feel young again. Young again? Sterling, you're 38, not 78. And Madison makes everyone feel old because she still thinks adulting is a cute verb. The messages revealed their entire relationship timeline, complete with discussions about when we can be together properly and after things settle down with Greer. They'd been planning my exit from Sterling's life like I was a subscription service they wanted to cancel. But my favorite discovery was a voice memo Sterling had sent her, recorded in our bathroom while I was downstairs making his coffee. Just thinking about last night, he whispered. Can't concentrate on anything else. Last night. The same evening he'd fallen asleep during our movie, claiming he was too exhausted for any kind of intimacy. As I sat there surrounded by evidence of my husband's double life, I realized something profound. I wasn't devastated anymore. I was absolutely furious, and fury, unlike heartbreak, is an excellent motivator for strategic planning. Sterling and Madison had been playing house for 8 months, thinking they were so clever, so secretive. They had no idea they were about to become the stars of their own public humiliation documentary. The turning point came when I decided to do something Sterling never expected from his simple suburban housewife. I hired a private investigator, not because I needed more evidence, but because I wanted to know exactly how deep this rabbit hole went. Meet Detective Sarah Chen, a former NYPD officer who now specializes in matrimonial investigations in Westchester County. Turns out, when you tell a professional investigator that you've already compiled 8 months of evidence in organized digital files, they get very interested very quickly. Most wives come to me with suspicions and maybe a lipstick stain, Sarah told me during our coffee meeting at Starbucks. You come with a forensic accounting spreadsheet and GPS location data. Are you sure you're not in law enforcement? I laughed, stirring my Venti Pike Place roast. Just a very organized wife with excellent time management skills and a husband who apparently thinks I'm an idiot. Sarah's report came back 3 days later, and it was better than Christmas morning. Sterling wasn't just cheating. He was embezzling. Small amounts, cleverly hidden, but consistent withdrawals from client accounts that he'd been funneling into a separate business account, an account he'd opened to fund his relationship with Madison. The jewelry, the trips, the expensive dinners, all of it paid for with money stolen from his own clients. Sterling had been robbing from retirement funds to finance his midlife crisis romance. But here's where it gets absolutely delicious. Madison had no idea. According to Sarah's investigation, Sterling had been telling his young girlfriend that he was liquid rich from successful investments. The girl thought she'd landed a financial genius, not a white-collar criminal who was stealing from elderly people's pension accounts. Even better? Sterling had been using the company credit card for their dates, claiming them as client entertainment expenses. His boss, Richard Morrison, a man I'd met at countless company Christmas parties, had no clue that Sterling's networking dinners were actually romantic evenings with his assistant. I sat in Sarah's office, reading through bank statements and financial records, feeling like I'd just been handed the nuclear codes to Sterling's entire existence. The embezzlement charges alone could get him 5 to 7 years, Sarah explained. But the real beauty is in the paper trail. He's been so confident that no one was watching. He barely tried to hide it. That's when I realized something crucial about my soon-to-be ex-husband. Sterling had always underestimated me. For 12 years, he'd seen me as the supportive wife who managed the household while he handled the important financial decisions. He'd never bothered to remember that I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business administration, or that I'd been the one who actually built his client organizational system in the early years. Sterling thought I was decorative, a suburban accessory who arranged flowers and attended PTA meetings while he played grown-up businessman. He had no idea I'd been paying attention to every detail of our financial life, every inconsistency in his stories, every micro-expression when he lied. The man who'd been condescending about my little marketing job before we had kids had forgotten that marketing is essentially strategic manipulation of public perception. And honey, I was about to launch the campaign of a lifetime. I spent the next week crafting what I now call Operation Social Media Apocalypse. This wasn't just about exposing an affair. This was about dismantling Sterling's entire carefully constructed image as the successful, trustworthy financial advisor and devoted family man. First, I created a detailed timeline of Sterling and Madison's relationship, complete with photo evidence, location data, and financial records. Every restaurant receipt, every hotel charge, every piece of jewelry purchased with stolen money. I organized it like a PowerPoint presentation that would make Harvard Business School professors weep with pride. Then I started researching everyone in Sterling's professional and social circle. His LinkedIn connections, Madison's Instagram followers, our mutual Facebook friends, the parents from our kids' school, members of the country club where Sterling played golf every Saturday morning, or so he claimed. Turns out those were brunch dates with his girlfriend. I made lists, spreadsheets. I mapped out social connections like I was planning a military operation. Because in a way, I was. The genius part was realizing that Madison's social media obsession would be her downfall. The girl documented everything. Every meal, every outfit, every location. She'd been creating evidence of their affair and posting it publicly, thinking she was being mysterious and romantic. I found posts from every single one of their dates, tagged with locations, time-stamped with precision. She'd been building my case for me, one Instagram story at a time. But the real masterpiece came when I discovered that Madison had been bragging to her sorority sisters about her successful older boyfriend, who was almost ready to leave his wife. She'd been showing off Sterling's gifts, the expensive restaurants, the weekend trips, all of it funded by embezzled money. Her sorority group chat, which I accessed through a mutual friend's account, thank you Melissa from book club, was a goldmine of incriminating evidence. Screenshots of Sterling's romantic texts, photos of gifts with price tags visible, even videos of their hotel rooms with room service receipts showing the dates and locations. These girls had been treating Sterling's stolen money like it was some kind of romantic fairy tale. Goals, they kept commenting. Get yourself a man who treats you like a queen. A queen funded by pension theft, but who's counting? I realized that Sterling and Madison hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been performing their relationship for social media, creating a comprehensive digital record of financial crimes and emotional betrayal. And I had front-row seats to the entire show. The final piece of my strategy involved timing. Madison's birthday was coming up in 10 days, And according to her Instagram countdown posts, Sterling was planning something absolutely magical for her 25th birthday celebration. I decided that would be the perfect moment to launch my counterattack. Let them have their romantic evening. Let them post their couple's photos. Let Sterling spend more stolen money on champagne and gifts. Because the bigger they celebrated their love story, the more spectacular their public humiliation would be. I spent those 10 days perfecting my presentation, rehearsing my timing, and making sure every single detail was verified and legally sound. Sarah had connected me with a forensic accountant and a criminal attorney, just to make sure my evidence would hold up in court. Sterling had no idea that while he was planning Madison's birthday surprise, I was planning the surprise of their lives. And unlike his embezzlement scheme, my plan was absolutely, completely legal. Madison's 25th birthday arrived on a perfect Saturday in October, complete with fall foliage that would photograph beautifully for her inevitable Instagram story marathon. Sterling had left the house at noon, claiming he had client paperwork to catch up on at the office. Right. The only thing he was catching up on was his girlfriend's birthday celebration. I waited until 8:47 p.m., peak social media engagement time, when everyone would be scrolling through their phones during Saturday night downtime. That's when Madison posted her birthday dinner photo from Le Bernardin in Manhattan. Sterling's hand visible in the frame, an expensive bottle of Dom Perignon on the table, and her caption reading, "25 never felt so blessed. When he surprises you with your dream dinner, birthday queen, spoiled by the best." Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I took a deep breath, opened Instagram, and posted what I now consider my magnum opus. The first slide was Madison's birthday photo, but with a creative addition, a side-by-side comparison showing our joint credit card statement from that exact evening. Le Bernardin, 8/47/23, charged to the Barrett family account. The caption read, "When your husband's client paperwork includes champagne and lobster." But that was just the appetizer. Slide 2. A collage of Sterling and Madison's romantic photos from the past 8 months, each one time-stamped and location-tagged, paired with corresponding credit card receipts showing every single charge. The Napa Valley trip, the Miami weekend, the jewelry purchases, all of it laid out like a financial audit with photographic evidence. Slide 3. Screenshots of Sterling's embezzlement records, carefully redacted to protect client privacy, but clear enough to show the pattern of theft. The caption, "Plot twist. When your husband funds his affair with stolen retirement money." Slide 4. The voice recording of Sterling practicing his working late excuses in our garage, overlaid with text showing the dates he'd used each excuse versus the dates he was actually with Madison. And the final slide, my personal favorite, a compilation of Madison's sorority group chat screenshots where she'd been bragging about Sterling's success and planning their future together, paired with photos of the actual financial crimes funding their romance. The caption for the entire post, "Sterling's greatest hits, a masterclass in midlife crisis management. When your husband of 12 years thinks embezzlement is a love language." Swipe for the full financial forensic audit. Accounting skills, marriage goals, white-collar crime. Sorry, not sorry. Then came the tagging. Oh, the beautiful strategic tagging. I tagged Sterling's boss, Richard Morrison, every single client whose money Sterling had been stealing, Madison's entire sorority from Syracuse, both our mothers, Sterling's golf buddies from the country club, the parents from our kids' school district, and yes, Le Bernardin restaurant, just for the geographic authenticity. The response was immediate and absolutely glorious. My phone started buzzing within 30 seconds. Comments flooded in faster than I could read them. Sterling's golf buddy Marcus was first. "Dude, what the hell?" Followed immediately by my sister-in-law Jennifer. "Greer Barrett, you are my hero." But the real entertainment started when Sterling's clients began responding. Mrs. Henderson, whose retirement account Sterling had been skimming from, commented, "Is this why my quarterly statements looked off? Calling my lawyer Monday morning?" Madison's sorority sisters turned on her like sharks smelling blood. Comments ranged from, "Girl, you knew he was married to," delete me from your contacts, to the absolutely savage, "This is why we don't date granddads, Madison." Within an hour, my post had been shared 847 times. The screenshots were spreading across Facebook faster than gossip at a PTA meeting. Sterling's professional reputation was disintegrating in real time, one angry comment at a time. But the absolute masterpiece moment came at 9:23 p.m. when Richard Morrison, Sterling's boss, commented publicly, "Sterling Barrett, you're fired. Security will escort you out Monday morning. Legal department has been notified." In the comments of my Instagram post, for everyone to see. I actually laughed out loud in my kitchen, wine glass in hand, watching Sterling's entire life implode through social media notifications. My phone rang at 9:31 p.m. Sterling, of course, calling from what I assumed was the restaurant bathroom. "Greer, what the hell did you do?" His voice was shaking, that practiced composure completely shattered. "Oh, honey," I said, using my sweetest suburban mom voice. "I just shared some photos from our family account. You know how much I love our memories together. You destroyed my career, my reputation. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "What I've done?" I laughed, settling deeper into our expensive couch, the one he'd claimed we couldn't afford to replace. "Sterling, I documented what you did. I just shared it with people who might find it interesting, like your clients, and your girlfriend's friends, and your boss. Oh wait, your ex-boss now." The silence on his end was delicious. "By the way," I continued, "how's Madison handling her birthday surprise? I imagine finding out her sugar daddy is actually a thief might put a damper on the Dom Perignon." She left. Her Uber's coming." Of course she did. Because nothing kills the romance like discovering your boyfriend's generous gifts were funded by felony theft. Madison might have been young and naive, but apparently she wasn't stupid enough to stay attached to a sinking ship. Well, that's awkward. "Expensive dinner for one now? Greer, please. We can work this out. I'll end things with her. We can go to counseling. I'll make this right." "Oh, Sterling," I said, scrolling through the continuing flood of comments and shares. "You're absolutely right. You will make this right. With the FBI Financial Crimes Unit, with your former clients, with the IRS, and with our divorce attorney. But not with me." I hung up and immediately blocked his number, then settled in to watch the most entertaining social media meltdown of my adult life. The comments kept coming. Sterling's golf buddies expressing shock and disgust. Madison's influencer friends distancing themselves publicly. Our neighbors suddenly understanding why Sterling's business trips had seemed so frequent. But my favorite comment came from my own mother at 10:47 p.m. "Greer Elizabeth Barrett, I have never been more proud of you in my entire life. Your father says to tell you that spreadsheet organization runs in the family." By midnight, Sterling's professional LinkedIn network was sharing screenshots. By Sunday morning, the local newspaper had picked up the story. By Monday, Madison had deactivated all her social media accounts, and Sterling was trending on local Twitter. The man who'd spent 12 years underestimating his wife's intelligence had just learned that revenge, like accounting, is all about attention to detail. And honey, I'd been paying attention to everything. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my newly renovated kitchen, paid for entirely with Sterling's half of our divorce settlement, sipping coffee from a mug that reads, "I survived my husband's midlife crisis, and all I got was this lousy mug and his entire retirement fund." The aftermath of Operation Social Media Apocalypse was more spectacular than I could have imagined. Sterling is currently serving 18 months in minimum security prison for embezzlement, which sounds harsh until you remember he was stealing from elderly people's retirement accounts to buy his girlfriend jewelry. The judge, a 60-something woman who clearly had no patience for midlife crisis criminals, called his actions a betrayal of the most vulnerable members of our community. Sterling's mugshot made the local paper with the headline, "Financial Advisor Steals from Clients to Fund Affair." Not exactly the professional legacy he was aiming for. His prison sentence comes with the delightful bonus of being a registered financial criminal, which means his career in wealth management is about as dead as his chances of ever being trusted with other people's money again. Last I heard, he was working in the prison library, organizing books alphabetically. Finally, a job that matches his skill level. Madison, meanwhile, discovered that dating a felon isn't quite the influencer aesthetic she was going for. Her social media sponsorships dried up faster than her fake tears when she realized Sterling wouldn't be funding her lifestyle from behind bars. She moved back in with her parents in Albany and, according to mutual acquaintances, is now working at a local bank as a teller. The irony of her handling other people's money after what happened with Sterling isn't lost on anyone, especially her supervisors, who apparently Google all their employees now. Her sorority sisters completely ostracized her. Turns out being associated with financial crimes isn't great for your personal brand when you're trying to launch careers in marketing and PR. The last Instagram post on her deactivated then reactivated account was a generic motivational quote about learning from mistakes. Zero engagement, which for someone who used to get hundreds of likes per selfie, probably stings worse than any legal consequences. The really beautiful part. Our divorce settlement was a masterpiece of legal karma. Because Sterling had been stealing marital assets to fund his affair, I was entitled to significantly more than the standard 50-50 split. My attorney, a brilliant woman who specialized in financial crime divorces, argued that Sterling had been depleting our joint resources to build his separate relationship, which constituted both financial adultery and theft of marital property. I walked away with the house, his entire 401k, 70% of our joint assets, and full custody of our kids, with Sterling paying child support from his prison commissary job. The judge's reasoning? Mr. Barrett demonstrated a clear pattern of financial deception and theft that compromised his family's security while enriching his extramarital relationship. Legal poetry at its finest. But here's the thing that surprises people when they hear this story. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm genuinely grateful. Sterling's affair was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to remember who I was before I became someone's supportive wife. That business administration degree I'd shelved? I'm now using it as a financial crimes consultant, helping other women navigate the discovery phase of divorce when they suspect financial infidelity. Turns out, my organizational skills and attention to detail make me excellent at uncovering hidden assets and fraudulent transactions. Who knew that 12 years of managing Sterling's chaos would translate into a six-figure career helping other women reclaim their financial independence? My kids, now 15 and 13, initially struggled with their father's imprisonment and public humiliation. But children are remarkably resilient, especially when they realize their mother is happier, stronger, and more financially secure than she's been in years. My daughter recently told me she's proud that I fought back like a boss. And my son said I'm way cooler than Dad ever was. From the mouths of babes. The house feels different now. Lighter somehow. Without Sterling's constant presence sucking the energy from every room. I've redecorated entirely, replacing his boring beige aesthetic with colors that actually make me happy. The kitchen where I discovered his betrayal is now painted a cheerful yellow. And every morning when I make coffee, I remember that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I've learned that betrayal isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. Staying blind to it is. Sterling's affair didn't destroy my life. It revealed that I'd been living someone else's life for 12 years. His deception forced me to become the person I was always meant to be. Successful, independent, and absolutely nobody's fool. The neighbors still whisper when I walk by, but now it's admiration mixed with wariness. I'm the woman who turned her husband's affair into a public service announcement about financial crime. I'm suburban legend now, the wife who fought back with spreadsheets and social media and won. And honestly, I wouldn't change a single thing. Because nothing teaches you your own worth quite like watching someone else underestimate it so completely that they destroy their entire life in the process. Sterling thought he was trading up. Turns out he was just trading in his integrity for a discount romance that cost him everything. But me? I got the best deal of all. I got my life back.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.